Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Ron Cook Hub. I'm Amrita Sadarangani. I'm Chief Academic Services Officer at the University of York Mumbai. Tonight's conversation is grounded in this year's festival theme, Place and Space, and it marks a significant milestone and celebration of the University of York's new campus in Mumbai, and only yesterday, the granting of the University Grants Commission in India's letter of agreement that allows us to operate, admit students to the new campus. This was handed over only yesterday in Delhi to Vice Chancellor Professor Charlie Jeffrey by Minister of Education. So I'd like to share the University of York Mumbai film for a little glimpse. Thank you. For this evening, I'd like us to explore a very simple question. What does it take to actually put down roots in a new city 8,000 kilometers away and create something that belongs both here and there? How do we build vibrant new creative spaces that bring people and communities together across the globe? To explore that, we've brought together a wonderful panel, which I will introduce and ask questions and guide a conversation through. And you'll have an opportunity as our audience to ask questions, so please do start thinking about that towards the end. I'd first like to introduce Vishakha Yaduvanshi, a warm welcome, Consul General of India, based in Manchester, whose career has spanned postings in Moscow, London, and the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi. She works at the very heart of the India-UK relationship, trade, culture, and the people-to-people ties that hold two countries together. Consul General, could I ask you to further introduce yourself and to set the scene for us? Why does a moment like this, a British university opening in Mumbai, matter for the relationship between our two countries?
Thank you, Arpita. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Very good afternoon to all of you. Excuse me for my slightly informal outfit, Honorable Vice Chancellor, because we organized something very special today in this beautiful campus. We commemorated the International Day of Yoga, which is an ancient well-being knowledge from India, which we are sharing with the world. And I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the university, to the Vice Chancellor, to everyone, your team, for supporting us and for participating in with enthusiasm. I would also like to, it's a pleasure to be introduced by Amrita, who's an epitome of building her, who's spent most of her time in building a career which is a bridge between the two regions and the two countries. So you are what defines today's discussion. I think. And as you've already briefly introduced me, my name is Vishakha. I hail from the Indian Foreign Service. I'm a diplomat. I'm a career diplomat. I served in Russia for 3 years, and I've served in London, High Commission of India, London. I have also studied at Oxford, a wonderful university of the UK, University of Oxford, which I'll talk about, that how that connects so well with today's topic, that how geographies and space and places are important, and how we have been collaborating. I have joined as a Consul General of India to north of England. Last year in March, we inaugurated 2 new consulates in the UK, one in Belfast and one in Manchester. We are based in Manchester. This reflects the diplomatic presence and the expansion of the footprints of India and the diplomatic engagement with the UK. This last 1 year has been quite exciting. I have been exploring opportunities with friends and with partners from across the region. I have traveled extensively to the region, to York, to Sheffield, to Warrington, Liverpool, and other areas. I'd like to mention very briefly, I won't take much time, that Newcastle is also under my jurisdiction technically, but we have an honorary consul. So this defines that we have 4 consulates of India in the UK and 2 honorary consuls who look after Newcastle and Wales. So in case of any help required, you can reach out to them. So that's my introduction. In terms of the collaboration with the universities, we have had an excellent collaboration so far. India and UK share a wide range of extensive strategic partnership, which includes several aspects of the relationship, and education being one of the very important pillars of our partnership and relationship since beginning, because education is something which has connected India and the UK historically. We have learned a lot from the books and the writers of British writers and the universities. I would here like to mention that this momentous occasion which we are celebrating in the educational partnership between India and the north of England, this is a wonderful news which we heard recently, that the University of York has opened its campus in Mumbai. This is a reflection of deepening engagements and transcending boundaries. So there are multiple ways of how we define geographies and how we connect with the geographies. One was the yoga, which is a cultural connect between the 2 regions, and which I'll talk about, that how does it connect the world. Education is the second connect between the 2 regions, which transcends boundaries. Now, historically, if we go back 200 years ago, there were somebody who wanted to study in a prestigious university of the UK. He or she had to travel, leave their family, their country, leave their geography, and had to travel, pay in foreign amounts, and had to travel abroad. Opening of the campus in that country gives the accessibility and opportunity to the students. Somebody based in Maharashtra who wants to have an experience of the UK education will now have the access to the UK education very easily. This, to my mind, is not a simple thing, not a simple step in the relationship. This is one of the most democratic step in the relationship which I have seen in democratization of education as I see it in my lifetime. My experience I don't know how much time can I take. I can go on and on, but I'll stop here probably, and then we'll listen. I look forward to listen to others as well.
Thank you so much for that. I think you stopped at a really interesting point. The access and democratization of, high quality, higher education. And perhaps later we can also talk about how moving this education to different parts of the world really also allow for the opportunity to engage with what is also local in India and also excellent, and how we can co-create new forms of education, research, and engagement. So thank you so much for that. Next, huge privilege to introduce Joan. Joan usually sits where I do or otherwise framing, so great to have you as a panelist. Director of the York Festival of Ideas and University of York's Chief Reputation and Stakeholder Relations Officer, and in many ways the reason we're all in this room tonight. Joan, I'd love you to tell us a little bit about your work and about the vision behind taking York, the institution, and this festival, potentially, out into the world and to Mumbai in particular. Why York and why now?
Okay, well, thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to be on a panel with such amazing people, some of whom I have worked with before and some of whom I've met for the first time this evening, the Consul General and Sanam's colleague who is here as a visitor from Tamil Nadu. It's a slightly weird title, Chief Reputation and Stakeholder Relations Officer, but I think it's reflective of, it's why York and why now. I think it aligns with where universities are starting to see themselves in a very different space. So if you go back to the foundation of this university in 1963, which sometimes surprises people because York is a city that's almost 2,000 years old, and there's a sort of sense of we've been here forever. Actually, we're very young and sprightly. But they were really pioneers of a different approach to education. They thought about themselves as global educators. And actually, in that founding year, the Archbishop of York at the time described future York students as global citizens of the world. And I think that was an extraordinary leap of imagination in the early 1960s, when you think about the UK context of almost still emerging from a devastating Second World War, to see education as this global powerhouse. And I think that is something we still adhere to. And so here we are in 2026 thinking about higher education in a global context, but in a very different way of thinking about the deployment of education. And I think that's incredibly important. Somebody said, we did a whole day today on the economy and the opportunities for the city, and somebody talked about the 19th century being the century of empires, the 20th century being the century of nations, and the 21st century potentially being the century of cities. And I think there's something in that. But I think a thread running through all of those centuries is the power of education and the expansion of education. And where it becomes really interesting now in terms of the why York and why Mumbai is the opportunity for us to learn from each other. When you look at the context of Mumbai, it's obviously much, much bigger than York. And yet you look at the innovation, you look at the ideas, you look at the creativity, you look at the finance, the design, the film, the philanthropy, the enterprise. So much of that is how we characterize what we have here in York, what we spent the whole day talking about. And at the heart of both is the idea of education and the desire for education. And I think particularly for parents who want their children to have better and more opportunities than they have. All through the last 9 days of the festival, I have heard again and again a common theme about shared humanity transcending borders. And I think it is an incredibly important thing to remind ourselves. We live in an incredibly volatile world. We live in a very uncertain world, fraught with disinformation. And if we don't have an education alliance on a global scale as well as a local scale, then I think there would be much less hope in the world and much less joy. The more we can educate people and provide them with the tools to be able to navigate a very volatile world, I think the better a place we will all be in. So you mentioned the festival. It would be amazing to take the festival. I mean, we've had international speakers here coming for many years. But in a sense, the festival mirrors that idea of being global citizens of the world. When I came here in 2009, my Vice-Chancellor likes to remind me how old I am by telling me I am the institutional memory of our board, which sometimes upsets me. And sometimes I think, oh, okay, I can live with that. But actually the reason we set up the festival was a sense of the marketization of education being quite a difficult thing to navigate, and wanting to take ourselves out of classrooms and into our communities, because it is so vital that people understand what universities are for, not just what we do, but who we do it for. And I think in the same context now, the festival has operated as our kind of public platform for bringing different people and communities together. And I see this huge opportunity in an alignment under the India-UK free trade deal to think about those platforms of engagement in a kind of global context. And again, it's about taking ourselves to audiences who don't necessarily understand what universities do or why we do it, or frankly, who benefits from it. The idea of creating a festival that in our case is not the University of York Festival of Ideas. It is very deliberately not branded as the university's festival. We work with about 150 partner organizations, and in effect, we're borrowing each other's audiences. And we are using our programming and convening power to talk to people in a very different way, to talk to people about their lives, to understand what their concerns are. And I go back to Sunday when we had a whole day where we decided audaciously to place democracy on trial, and hearing from people about how worried they are and how unempowered they feel. If I've had £1 for every time somebody at a festival event says, oh my God, what can I do as an individual? So I think that convening power is really powerful. And I think the opportunity for us as York and Mumbai to learn from each other, and I am very convinced we're going to learn huge amounts from India in general. I've been to India a number of times, and you can touch the energy. Yeah. You can feel a sense of dynamism, creativity, and constructive forward momentum. And I'm so excited about that. And it would be amazing to think about a festival that had the ethos that we have here, which is to educate, entertain, and inspire, shamelessly borrowed from the BBC, but to place it as we are placing the University of York Mumbai in a Mumbai context, to understand where we can contribute, but equally where we can learn and perhaps be more than our collective entities by working together and collaborating together.
Thank you so much, Joan. That's extremely inspiring. That flips over into inspire, in my view. Our next speaker is Sanam Arora, founder and chair of the National Indian Students and Alumni Union UK, and a tireless champion for international students. Work most recently recognized with the Pioneer Award. Sanam, please do further introduce yourself and bring us the perspective of people at the center of all this. What does a genuine global education mean for young people moving between two countries, and what makes them belong?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Joan, as always. Amrita, lovely to finally meet in person, and Charlie, thank you for all that you do and for allowing NISAO to be a part of the York's journey in India. So NISAO is National Indian Students and Alumni Union UK, as you mentioned. This is our 15th year of service to the India-UK corridor. We were set up about 2011-12 because things were not so nice for international students. Unfortunately, things are returning to that point, or seems like they may return to that point. And in that, we were set up essentially to fight against, misinformation. You mentioned misinformation, Joan, as an issue considerably today. Back then, we had a lot of immigration troubles. We had a number of institutions losing their Tier 4 sponsor licenses overnight, without due regard to what this would do to international students who had traveled over thousands and thousands of kilometers to belong, to study, to learn. And so we were founded in response to that adversity, and our fight is very much for welfare of international students and for promotion of India-UK ties, particularly in education. And it's actually incredible that we're at this moment in time, especially yesterday, having received the approval for the campus and admissions, because for centuries, Indian students have traveled to the UK. Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Nehru, our first Prime Minister, Babasaheb Ambedkar, the guy who wrote our Constitution, and so many others, millions of others have studied in the UK, and they've all made this journey of thousands of kilometers in pursuit of that aspiration that Vishakha mentioned. But they've had to make a choice between saying goodbye to mom and dad at the airport and really struggling here alone, and that aspiration and that ambition. So it's wonderful that while we've spent 15 years fighting for that one-way journey, the reverse journey, and now where we students have been immigrants for many, many years, the university is now an immigrant in India. So I think it's a really special point in time. As I said, we've been supporting numerous universities as they look at, once the new education policy came into play, as they looked at entering India. But it is York's journey that has, to us, been the most special, because I genuinely think, having been on the student side, that this is the one university that has taken student experience at the heart of everything they do. The very fact that you invited us to participate in what a global campus should look like explains and proves and credentializes the fact that you place that student experience and what a student really wants, the belonging that you referred to, at the very heart of the design of this campus. And actually, I think it's a fascinating time because, Joan, you referred to misinformation and disinformation and people asking about whether it's actually relevant to go to university anymore in this country, in India, elsewhere in the world. And here we are taking one of the best kept secrets of the UK to India, opening up a full-fledged campus in the financial epicenter. I think it's actually really great that we've chosen Mumbai as a destination because Maharashtra has been the financial hub, the creative economy hub. Pune has had a lot of education, it's known as the Oxford of the East, but Mumbai hasn't quite had that sort of superstar education university, I would say. So it's great that York is going to lead that journey in Mumbai alongside a few other universities. I also think it's particularly relevant because, me included, a lot of people are now talking about how artificial intelligence is really making information available. You know, every student has in their mobile phones a tireless tutor that works all night for them. So why on earth do you need to go to university anymore? Well, actually, I think place and space is the exact answer to that, because whereas you have knowledge in your hands and at the touch of a button, it is wisdom, I think, that universities help create, because that wisdom comes from space and place and coming together and being neurodiversifically, if that's a word, linked to each other. And I think it is those perspectives which I think, when we're questioning the value of university and questioning the value of formal education or higher education, certainly, it's really, really quite a statement and quite relevant and quite powerful to be able to say we're doing this right now because it's required more than ever before. And every time I think we've seen, to my mind, apart from religion, university as a concept is probably the most organized, continuing thing over time. You can't get away from it. A couple of years ago, I think a decade or so ago, we were told that, if online education comes in, university will become irrelevant, and now we're being told if AI comes in, university will become irrelevant. Actually, this is the one thing that stands the test of time because it brings humans together. And in this time of AI, you mentioned it's a time of cities, or it's a time of AI, but actually, it is that human experience that a university enables, because I think we, especially in this country, and Charlie and Joan, you do so much to address this, but for instance, in the UK, we now are questioning the value of a university in terms of, we're framing it down to immigration debates, we're framing it down to blue skills versus white collar skills, etc. But we're forgetting that a university is the epicenter of a community. And it was World War III for me coming here today because, the trains had broken down from London up north. But what that did was I had to go via Sheffield. So I ended up at Loughborough Station, Leicester Station, Sheffield, York, going up further north to Edinburgh and whatnot. But basically what it reminded me was that in this country, every station has 2, 3, 4 universities, or at least one university linked to it. And that university is bringing the world together. That university is the heart, is the beating heart of that city, of that region. And actually, that is what universities are. So place, space, time, it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to take all of this to India, where I will add, and I think Consul General will agree with me, it's a meeting of two great knowledge hubs, because we were the ancient universities in the world were in Bihar, Takshila, Nalanda. We were the ancient beating knowledge hub of the world. Students used to travel thousands of kilometers from Persia, China, Tibet, elsewhere to gain that knowledge. So in some ways, this is a meeting of great minds and a meeting of great knowledge hubs coming together. But I will stop there because there's many others to go.
Thank you so much, Sanam. That gave me goosebumps because actually the reason this panel is even here is a conversation with Joan and with Asad, where when I said, this is about places and spaces, well, the conversations we've been having about what we can do together needs to happen here, this year, so we can, continue to build on that. And place and space is incredibly important. So thank you. Next, Asad Lalljee, a real pleasure, my friend and, partner in crime, shall I say, steal some of your phrases. CEO of Avid Learning, Curator of the Royal Opera House Mumbai. Asad has spent over 16 years at the intersection of culture, policy, and the creative industries. Asad, over to yourself, and to further introduce yourself, and perhaps to make the case for why culture and the arts belong at the very center of a university's story.
Well, thank you, Amrita, Joan, and Charlie for having me here and being on this august panel, but I'm just going to disagree with her for one quick second. She said Bombay didn't have good universities. You and I are products of Xavier's College, and there's IIT, so it does have good university, and we've done well for ourselves. But just to go on,
You're taking a great university.
But that's what we had. That was the best. That's why I left and I went abroad. But that's what, anyway, I'll just go back to my, looking at arts and culture and why it should be at the heart of a university, like philosopher John Dewey argued that in art as an experience, that the art is not entertainment or decoration, it is a way of experiencing the world. Deeply and meaningfully, it engages the whole person's intellect, sense, and emotion. So I'm going to read because I've actually prepared she gave me 7 minutes and I prepared a 7-minute answer. Martha Nussbaum in Not-for-Profit 2010 made a case for the exposure to literature, theater, and the arts helps individuals develop emotional intelligence, ethical responsibility. It strengthens democracy in nurturing critical thinking and a commitment to justice. The arts belongs in every institution, not just art schools, and to complete a rigorous education in artificial intelligence era, creativity, critical thinking, communication, collaborations are essential, and the arts cultivates them all. And these are not abstract arguments. Research has been supporting them. Then India's national education policy has recognized this with a landmark shift from STEM to STEAM, formally placing arts within the curriculum, not at the periphery. And research combined by the Cultural Learning Alliance of 24 found that regular participation in the arts can enhance the cognitive ability by 17% with a pronounced benefit in students from lower income backgrounds. And speaking from backgrounds, I was born and educated in Bombay at Xavier's College, and I began to be drawn to the arts from a very young age, and I scholarshiped my way to do a master's degree in global marketing, communications, and advertising at Emerson College in Boston. In 1996, these degrees did not exist in India, and my peers were pursuing MBAs. Eventually, I made my foray into the highly competitive world of advertising on Madison Avenue. And beyond the profession, New York immersed me in a living curriculum of museums, theater, design that shaped my worldview. After a successful career in New York, I returned to India, and what happened next was kismat, serendipity, of faith. Unconsciously, I fell into the world of arts and culture with two convictions that have never left me since, that learning never stops, and the arts and culture must be for everyone. It's not a privilege for a few, and my own path has demonstrated that an education that sits at the intersection of culture, communication, creativity multiplies your options. I run something called Avid Learning, which is the cultural arm of the SR Group, which was founded in 2009 as a continuous learning platform. I took charge in 2011 and made it into India's leading arts and culture platform. We presented over 2,000 programs, hybrid programs, and domestically and internationally, engaged with over 2 million learners. And, presently I'm serving on the executive committee of the Indian National Trust for Arts and Cultural Heritage, which is INTAC, Mumbai's greater chapter, a primary body that focuses on heritage conservation, working to protect the city's built and natural heritage through advocacy, education, and community engagement. In Bombay, we also have something called the Kalagora Arts Festival, which we have been programming for since 2011. It's Asia's largest multidisciplinary street festival, and since 2022, I serve on the executive committee there. But this festival has helped transform the Kalagor Arts District into Asia's most vibrant, internationally recognized cultural precinct. So that is the effect the arts and culture has. And, you know, the Royal Opera House I have to talk about is India's only surviving opera house, often called the city's very own cultural crown jewel. It reopened in October of 2016 after being closed for 25 years. Invited to serve as the curator before it opened, I've developed a curatorial philosophy that is positioned as a landmark and a venue for active, creative, and cultural collaboration. Since reopening, we've presented over 1,400 programs, welcomed 250,000 attendees, and earned the UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards for Cultural Heritage Conservation. Its revival demonstrates how cultural institutions and arts and culture can drive neighborhood revivals, expanding cultural participation and production. And this project has been documented through an academic paper I wrote and presented at the Cultural and Creative Participation in India at the Impact of the Royal Opera House Mumbai that I presented at the Association for Cultural Economics at the Indiana University in Bloomington in 2023 and the International Conference for Arts and Culture in Lisbon. Moving to the creative industries, which is something that you all are interested in, established in 1927, the Federation of the Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry is the largest apex business body in India. In 2018, I was inducted into the National Arts and Culture Committee through multi-stakeholder convenings. We're advocating how to put culture at the heart of public policy, and with a particular focus on education. Our upcoming symposium on the 24th of October in Mumbai. Yesterday, we invited the University of York to come and contribute on discussing on cultural infrastructure and the global creative economy. You know, a sector that generates $2 trillion annually and supports 50 million jobs worldwide. Hence, culture and arts has to be in the center of education. India's creative industry is a $30 billion industry, contributing to 2.5% of India's GDP and accounting for 8% of the livelihood. And India has now grown to 100 million content creators, representing a massive grassroots creative economy. Now, the new buzzword in Mumbai, in India, is the orange economy. Some of you may know of it. It refers to the economic activity driven by creativity, culture, and intellectual property, where the value is created through ideas and artistic expression. At the Wave Summit in 25, PM Modi described this as the dawn of India's orange economy, built on pillars of content, creativity, and culture. The union budget of 26-27 reinforces this vision by recognizing the creative economy as a driver for growth, innovation, and employment, particularly in the AVGC sector. And it also supports the establishment of the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies in Mumbai. You know, that sector is projected to require 2 million professionals by 2030. And I'm particularly encouraged to learn that the University of York has already established an MOU with IICT. I've been involved with many universities, and I'm going off script now, globally, whether it's, the Guildhall School of Music or Edinburgh. And it's been great to bring together academia, policy, and students together, and that the exchange has been extremely fruitful through panel discussions, workshops. Most recently, I was honored to be a Salzburg Global Fellow and the Bridge Cultural Leadership Fellow, but most importantly, a founding member of the Creative Industries Program Advisory Board of the University of York in Mumbai. So I thank you for that, and I look forward to helping you put the arts and culture more in the center of the universities rather than on the peripheral.
Thank you, Asad. I am looking forward to working more together. Our final speaker is Supriya Nagarajan, one of the UK's most sought-after Carnatic vocalists and artistic director of Manasamitra, whose immersive works have traveled from the South Bank Centre to Reykjavik and who has performed at this festival before. Supriya, please do tell us a little bit more about yourself, and as someone who builds immersive spaces for a living, tell us what actually makes a space feel alive and able to hold people from very different places at once.
Thank you so much, Amrita. It's been a pleasure sitting here and listening to all our speakers on this panel. Such diverse views, but so relevant. I'm going to speak from a very cultural perspective. And before I talk about the culture or about my association with the wonderful York Festival of Ideas, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I studied in Bombay. I was born and brought up in Mumbai. Bombay, I still say Bombay because it's my connection to my time there. I was born and brought up in Mumbai. And I graduated in accountancy from the University of Mumbai. So I did actually do my university in Mumbai, so I can feel the experience a little closely. And I then proceeded to have a career with HSBC as an accountant for a very long time. So for 20 years, I did just that. Always had a passion for music, culture, music, arts, always attracted me. So when the opportunity arose, the first opportunity that arose, I actually quit banking here in the UK. So I traveled through India and came here, worked here, and then decided that I wanted to pursue music full time. So that's my career graph, which led me into the arts and the music of where I am today. So in terms of the work that I do, I've done a few projects for the York Festival of Ideas. I do immersive experiences, and I choose subjects and work with universities. I work with different kinds of collaborators, scientists, corporates, sponsors. I work with all sorts of people to actually make that project live. And in fact, this year I presented a small R&D because Asad mentioned Martha Nussbaum. I actually presented a small piece of work called Other Voices, which is an immersive piece of work that deals with Martha Nussbaum's Justice for Animals, and that talks about the non-human inhabitants of this planet. And all my learning and the ability to create immersive work has come from both my education in Mumbai as well as my connections with people here and my life here as well. So when I came here, the one thing I realized was that I have to be able to take my music, take my ideas out of any box and put it out there in a way that anybody can enjoy it. So it's very important for audiences to come from different spheres, but still not have a barrier about what genre of music I was performing or what subject I was actually presenting. So that's always been my ambition and aim as far as my work is concerned. And I think when I was last year, when Joan mentioned to me that York is actually having a campus in Mumbai, I was delighted. First, because of course it's Mumbai, it's my city, I'm still a Mumbaiker at heart. So I did feel really good about that. And I could see the potential in Mumbai as well. And I said, that's a really great decision because Mumbai does have the ability to support what the university will seek to achieve over the next 10 years. And also remembering that the other thing that struck me was that, although we live in a very global world, competition is also global. So a student who wants to study in a university that's based in York may or may not be able to actually make that journey to York to actually do that. But if they are able to actually achieve that through just being in Mumbai, then that is a step that, step towards, of course, democracy, but also creating the future intellectual minds. And I always remind myself when I create any piece of work, somebody once said that William Shakespeare was a little child in some English class. And I remind myself of that because we as people here creating work, or the university as creating minds and intellectuals, also has that responsibility to think about what the future holds. And yes, there are different strands of education, but there is also this opportunity that the university then gives people who otherwise will not have that opportunity. And that, I think, is the very important thing about York going into Mumbai. And I'm hoping the York Festival will also transcend and make that journey into Mumbai, because when I look around, and I do a lot of performances across the world, Reykjavik was mentioned, and I completely enjoyed my first journey into Iceland, and I made many journeys after that to work with the symphony orchestra. But I remember that journey and the complete lack of knowledge of Indian culture in Iceland when I actually made that journey, and how I actually left, because the director said, improvisatory Indian music may be a step too far for the symphony orchestra. And I was quite happy to, go the extra mile, make that happen, do workshops. And I think they got to know me rather than my music. And once they got to know me, they were comfortable with making the music. And similar with the university, if students come through the doors, then you have your first set of ambassadors there. And then they will actually spread the word to make things happen. And vice versa. So if culture went from here there, the York Festival of Ideas, Joan, I'm not looking at you. If it went there, then culture would travel both ways, and that bridge would be created where ideas could move countries. And I think that will do what nothing else can do. Culture can actually create that bridge. I think that's what it is.
Thank you so much, Supriya, because that leads beautifully into my question to Consul General. Which is about bridges, but about now bridges being two-way. So we tend to talk about foreign universities coming to India, but the policy explicitly talks about this being bidirectional. So we know, of course, that Indian institutions are going global as well. How do you see branch campuses, whether they're UK universities going to India, Indian universities going elsewhere, fitting into the wider India-UK relationship? And what does India hope to give as well as receive?
It's a very relevant question, Arpita. Thank you for asking, because I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about my education time and how, as I have mentioned, to my mind, I was thinking that how this democratizes the education and the knowledge. In the India-UK relationship, this is a landmark moment. We have signed this landmark free trade agreement last year with the UK government, and both our leaders signed last year, which is being implemented soon. So, which also has provisions for further educational collaborations. The opening of the campus by the University of York shows the growing engagement with India through student exchange, through educational collaboration, through research and developments, which to my mind is one of the very most important aspects of education. To my mind, I see this as not a one-way approach at all. This is not an export of education or knowledge to India, but this is co-creation to my mind. And both the country, this is a joint venture. And as I mentioned, and as I think Sanam mentioned, that it has been the global education and the globalization of knowledge has been the culture of India for ages. The Nalanda University in Takshila she mentioned about exist in India before the University of York in Oxford. The transport was the living bridge which we are talking about. By definition itself is a two-way traffic. So as our Prime Minister calls it, a living bridge with the community, the culture, the education, these are the living bridge, and the people sitting here are the living bridge between the two countries. I would like to mention that the FTA also talks about the mobilization of students and mobilization of professionals, which opens multiple doors to both the countries. And yeah, that's how I look at it.
Thank you so much. Joan, we keep using the word place. When we build a university in a new city, what are we really building? Is it a campus? Is it an institution, a community? And which is the hardest?
So with apologies to my amazing colleagues who are both here and in India working together to create the infrastructure, to do all of the compliance, to think about the curriculum and all the rest of it, I think those are clearly really important, but I would say creating a community is something different, and I will politely paraphrase Philip Larkin when he talked about families, that people sometimes think all universities are the same. Actually, they're all quite different. And the reason they're different is because of the human characteristics and the chemical balance of the people who come. And I go back to the founding, they were all fathers. Well, they may not have been fathers, but they were certainly all men. The founders of this university were mostly free-thinking renegades from Oxford and Cambridge who were passionate about academic rigor, but they wanted to break out of the constraints of quite a hidebound, very traditional. A previous Vice-Chancellor here always said Oxford was still debating in the 20th century whether engineering was going to fly because it took them so long to be agile. That may or may not be apocryphal. But I guess the point is they were a community who wanted to create a new way of thinking about education. And I think that is the huge opportunity we have again. But it is hard because you can't create a community overnight. You can't just do it through a launch or a brand or even a Festival of Ideas event talking about it. It's both hard and easy, and it's about getting the balance of chemistry. It's also, I think critically for me, it's about listening, active listening to that community as you go along, and the opportunity of thinking about education in that global context. I go back to what Asad said and what Sanam said. We live in a complex world, and education is really critical. I think the thing that has always been such a facet of my experience of being here since 2009 is the curiosity of our community, the creativity of our community, but also the constructive collaboration across the disciplines. And what's so inspiring about the education policy is that passionate adherence to the idea that investing in your people by enabling them to have access to education is the route to sharing prosperity, for sharing ideas, for sharing innovation, for driving such economic success. But I don't think it's only about economic success. It is that respect for knowledge in the first place that is so inspiring. And so I think it is an agglomeration. William Dalrymple was here last night. He ran over. That's not a surprise to anybody. But he talked about, and I've now forgotten, I wrote it down, but I wrote it down on my phone. But he talked about confluence. And then he gave the Hindi phrase, I think it was Sangam? Thank you, Sangam. And I was really struck by that phrase because I think we are at this confluence. We are at this intersection of new knowledge. We are at the intersection of new AI that is both scary and not so scary. I've just been lucky enough to work recently with a global education company where we were testing the idea of should we be so worried about AI that it's taking all the jobs, or should we think there is a positive upside to this? And the positive upside is actually we are in a kind of inflection moment. We are in a moment of transition. But I think what we prove through this work is if you are looking for growth and prosperity at both community and individual level, then the more education you can throw at the problem, the better it will be. And that is the piece that I think is really interesting. And the other, going back to my interdisciplinary perspective, is what we're also showing through this report is that there are multiple common skills across most of the things that drive developed economies to prosper. And what we must ensure is that there is a robust pipeline of those skills that take academic skills and transcend what they've learned in the classroom into a live environment, because we have given them something extra through the kind of community that we create, that those skills are applicable and our students will be not just employed somewhere, but can be employable anywhere in the context of where they happen to be.
Thank you. I'd like to stay with the institution and place theme. So I'm going to go to Asad and then come back to yourself and Supriya for people, if that's okay, Sanam. So Asad, there's a risk in the phrase global university, that it ends up placeless the same in every city. How do you root something deeply in Mumbai while keeping it genuinely connected to York?
Now, normally I'm sitting where Amrita is sitting because I'm a serial moderator and I love using statistics and quotes to frame my conversations, hence I have to read. But you know, the heart of a university is not its rankings, it's not its buildings, it's its people, right? And the students are shaped by where they come from. Now, I'm just going to talk about Bombay since I come from it. And, you know, it's one of the most dynamic cities in the world. It has got a population of 21.8 million people. It's India's financial capital. The city generates approximately 310 billion in nominal GDP and accounts for 5% of the entire nation's output. It is the center of the creative industries. It's home to the Hindi film industries, Bollywood, the largest film industry in the world, one of the largest, with filmmaking dating back to 1913. So it's got extraordinary diversity, and it's got scale, and it's got constant reinvention. I always describe Bombay, I mean, I still call it Bombay also, Mumbai as the New York of India, so I lived in both of those places. What Bombay offers is access to this energy and entrepreneurial talent, creativity, and a global business network. And students who have come from there have grown up navigating one of the most complex urban environments that there are. Now, York, in turn, brings something totally different. It's this long-standing tradition of academic excellence, research, international participation, partnerships, deep expertise in the creative industries. So the qualities and the DNA cannot be transported automatically. You know, the future of international education is based on co-creation and not a one-way knowledge transfer. And technology is great, but it can't replace the importance of place. You know, Bombay has a DNA which will not change for a long time, and that's why it's like the survival of the fittest. You know, it's like New York anyway. And you know, York's education cannot be packaged and distributed online, right? You're taking two great places and you're bridging it through this collaboration, and I agree. You know, the opportunity to strengthen it together, and if this has to succeed, which I'm sure it will be a university shaped by Mumbai, enriched by York, and connected to the world. Now, just an aside thing, just making another plug for the Festival of Ideas. You know, there are 9 UK universities opening shop in India, 7 in Bombay. This York Festival of Ideas could be a really powerful competitive differentiator with 15 years of experience. And, you know, if you also put the creative economy hat on, you know, festivals actually make money. They're just not feel-good things. It generates money into the economy and will actually bring you a lot of equity because, you know, when the Opera House opened, I'm just going to do an aside, is, you know, the cigarette vendor made money, the buildings got painted. The arts have this multiplier effect. And so bringing that to Mumbai through us will be another, you know,
I think my response
crowning
to that,
glory.
I'm extremely excited about that idea, but my red line is that a university should not have barriers. And so we will be successful in creating a truly interesting community in UOI Mumbai if we are very porous to the community, and we will really be mega successful if we're engaging the communities around us who aren't necessarily our students and our staff. So the criticality for me is, as it is here, is that it is free. And so we run on donors, and I'm always looking for more of them. But you know, that opportunity to draw people in who aren't necessarily embedded in our community, but when they care about the success of UOI Mumbai, then I know we will have succeeded. As
you know, where you're located is you've got the best of the universities around you. So it's not a York Festival of Ideas, it's a festival of ideas. And get the IIT students, get all the students to come and create this community effort, because each one has their own myopic ones, but it's not a community one. So
yeah, and I go back to the fact that, and I got some flack, we did not call it the University of York Festival of Ideas, because in the nicest possible way, I knew I would get everybody who comes to normal academic style lectures, even though they're just as successful as any other event. We wanted to be able to say it was something different, and that it wasn't the university talking at people, that we wanted to engage the city in a very different way.
So, Festival of Ideas in Mumbai.
Just to add to that, Joan, I mean, just thinking of Festival of Ideas, it's sort of a highlight for the university here. And so if even there are 8-10 universities in Mumbai, still the fact that York runs this festival could have some kind of a salient impression, leave an impression on the students there. So, I mean, this could happen in the future. So they might be more inclined to look at York as compared to something else.
Yeah, and you know, the point is to make education accessible. But we have a phrase, I have a phrase, which is programming by stealth. In the nicest possible way, we blend all of the speakers. We have people off the telly, we have people who are selling books, we have big journalists, we have policymakers, and we have academics. And it's about essentially giving people the thing that they didn't know they wanted, because most of the time they really like it. I've lost track of the amount of times that one of our brilliant academics is on a panel with 3 or 4 people who are really, really well known, and audiences will come back and say, Professor X was brilliant. And that's the point, is you're getting people to be excited about it without almost sort of, you know, you're getting them to own the idea that they've come to this by themselves.
I think we made an unshakable case to bring the Festival of Ideas to
Gives me another project problem.
Let's get cracking on that then. And, you know, taking us back to Sanam and students, belonging, I think, you know, many of you have referred to this. Belonging and separation is the thing that students say they struggle with the most when they move far from home. And what actually creates belonging, in your view? Spaces, places, rituals, something else?
Ideas. Sticking on that theme. I will say, by the way, I'm a consultant by profession, so if you needed a business case for your Festival of Ideas in Mumbai, you've got it. No, jokes aside, it's a great question, because I think it is ideas, it is perspectives, and it is freedom to explore without being judged, without being you know, maligned one which way or the other. And it is I remember going back to university, why I still think it was the most transformational experience of my life, was because, and actually I wrote an article about it the other day. I went to the London School of Economics, and I came across this article 2-3 days ago, coincidentally, which I'd written on the LSE blog, saying how going to LSE made me more Indian. Because it was this privilege of existing in an ecosystem where you could be who you wanted to be, explore the ideas you wanted to explore, as much or as little, protest as much as you wanted to, question, challenge, ideate as much as you wanted to or as little as you wanted to, stay up all night talking about the most pointless things on the planet, because it was those perspectives coming together. So I think belonging comes from freedom to explore. And that exploration is the journey that I think is so exciting. Because I also think York will be on a bit of an exploratory journey as you go to Mumbai, as you experience India, because it is the most aspirational, the most ambitious, the most energetic country on the planet. And that is visible. Joan, you referred to that energy.
Feel like you can taste and smell it and touch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we have this Hindi term called jugaad, which is creative innovation. It's in our blood. Being entrepreneurial is in our blood. Responding to challenges and bringing resilience is in our blood. But I think belonging in this particular instance will come from that meeting of energies, that meeting of knowledge, and bridge, as you referred to, Vishakha, that living bridge of you know, ideas and just people coming together to share those perspectives. I think that is the most critical thing. I think the challenge, because not everything is nice, there are risks, challenges, issues. I think the challenge will be how you won't necessarily be able to equate the experience of a student in York studying at York University to a student at York and Mumbai, I wouldn't think. But you might be able to be equitable about that experience. And I think the challenge would be how we make sure that a student in York, studying in York at York, has the same experience and outcome and the same credentialization across the world as a student who does that in Mumbai. And I also think, you know, belonging will also come from the contract and that York is signing up to, because, I mean, I was just doing the math in my head. If York in 2030, someone who enrolls at York in 2030 will still be alive when it's like 2091. So what you're signing up for is an intergenerational contract with the country. And so we're building for that belonging. We're building to be a global university, a British university, but also an Indian university in that way. And I think if we can do all of those things, we will find everyone belonging there in their own way.
Thank you. I think that leads beautifully into the last question I have, which is for Supriya. So a festival or a campus can be delivered to a city, can be taken there, or can be built with it. So referring to your lullaby booths, which literally collects a place's own voices before you perform. And so therefore, what does real co-creation look like in practice? And what's lost when an institution skips that step and just arrives?
Good question. Co-creation is a much used word, but genuine co-creation comes when all the collaborators have the agency to be able to do exactly what they want and come together and make something happen that then becomes everybody's desire and responsibility at the same time. So that, in a nutshell, is co-creation. And Lullaby Sonic Cradle, one of the projects that I am still touring, I started in 2015 and it's still quite live, is one such project where we go across to a place, and I'm just going to pretend that the York Festival of Ideas is hosting Lullaby Sonic Cradle in Mumbai. And you go across and you collect lullabies from different communities there. It could be the parent community, it could be, disabled carers and the disabled participants in a community, and we have done that in London as well. It could be fathers who rarely sing lullabies in different countries, but we found that in Norway, the fathers sing the lullabies and not the mothers. So, I mean, you have all these prejudged notions, and then they're all destroyed when you actually go out and start researching. But what it actually lends itself to is collecting these lullabies, bringing it back, and then collaborating with local musicians to actually create an immersive performance. So that is what Lullaby Sonic Cradle is. And because of the versatility of how it is, I've been able to go out to different parts of the world, Australia, Portugal, and work with different kinds of musicians, different kinds of people, and essentially what it is building a community. So if we did Lullaby Sonic Cradle in Mumbai, it would not be about making a show happen. It'll be more about associating and connecting to the people that matter to the place that has actually invited us in. So if, for example, if the Opera House have invited us in, the idea is to make something that is relevant to the place and relevant to the people who come to the space. So that, I think, is the most important thing when you think of co-creation and collaboration. And if you're able to achieve it and bring audiences in that otherwise may not actually feel connected to the performance, then you have actually achieved your target, because you are co-creating with your audience in that way. They come because there's a little snippet of somebody's lullaby in the soundscape within the performance. So, everybody is interested in seeing how that is actually manifested. So, yeah.
I'm just going to add, if you come into the Opera House, you might find my lullaby, because men do sing lullabies to their children, and I used to my daughter.
Fantastic.
And she still remembers it.
And we'll record you for sure, Asad.
I mean, I don't know about that part, but yeah. Okay, but I'll trust royalty, remember that.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a good example of co-creation, and I think that will be a successful model in any sense.
Just one point on the co-creation. I think co-creation is enabled by deep understanding. And so do I think a York Festival of Ideas, in its current format, in a UK context, despite being a global university, is easily transportable? No, I don't. Do I think that the idea of knowledge creators engaging with multiple different communities on their terms is a viable product that we could co-curate? Absolutely. But I guess what I'm interested in, and I'm very, very keen, Charlie, to go to Mumbai to get under the skin of what the art is possible is. You know, we created the York Festival of Ideas here in 2011 because we talked extensively to a whole plethora of organisations in the city who were all complaining that they were not getting the visibility that they felt that they deserved because they weren't the Minster and they weren't the Walls and they weren't a tea shop, which is largely what people spend their time talking about. And we got under the skin of that. And I think that is the process by which you start to identify the sweet spot or the deficits where no one is doing it. And that's the bit that's so interesting. And, you know, the thing that is so amazing about working in a university and the whole construct of academia is you are kicking the walls of the existing knowledge parameters and constantly finding new things. Well, I say you know, my amazing academic colleagues, you know, they are literally getting up every day thinking, how do I expand what we know about something? And that's just incredible. And so how do we actually take that idea of expanding the idea of knowledge to different communities? Because everybody's got ideas. And so often they are told that their ideas are not good. And I just do not believe that.
Thank you. And I hope you now have some ideas, our audience, and some questions for us. So the lady in the red.
I think we're well over, so maybe just a couple of questions.
Yeah. So just 2 questions. So that one and one more, please.
Thank you so much. So I'm a resident of Mumbai. I lived in Mumbai for 12 years, studied at TIS Mumbai before coming to Oxford and then coming to York for my PhD in safety of AI. So I really commend all of the ideas that you shared. But I wanted to add something from the student experience perspective. When you talk about moving across universities and Mumbai being a city where not all students are from Mumbai. I moved to Mumbai from a very different place. The things that matter more for students, and probably to a large extent, is the student-to-student communities and bonds between students. And I feel at York, the students from India and from Mumbai in particular have such a huge potential to offer to students who visit from the Mumbai campus here and also when we go back home. So I would love to offer our support in fostering these ties, creating these forums where students feel assured and belonged and find a community where they can, exchange ideas and opportunities.
Thank you so much, because that is part of the launch plan, to have students coming from Mumbai to York and from here to Mumbai. Thank you for your support.
May I add something to that? So what you'll be very pleased to know is that York's the first university, and there are many that are opening up now in India, 9 we heard from the UK, but York's the first one where NISAO is going to be supporting that student experience quite heavily. So it is part of, which is why I'm so passionate about, this DNA of student experience. So be it that sort of bilateral mobility, or be it ensuring that a student in York has a very similar experience to a student at York and Mumbai, and actually gets to live and feel that entire ecosystem and belonging is something that we'll be looking to support quite explicitly. So congratulations on that. We have the Ideas Festival and this unique distinction as well.
We have, I know Bob, you had your hand up, but I'm going to go to the lady in the front.
Thanks. Lots to talk about. This is really a question for Joan and others who represent the University of York. Just a little bit. My dad went from Trinidad to Roorkee, then to Durham. I went from Trinidad to the University of Toronto, then Syracuse University, and my daughter went from Philadelphia to the University of York. First choice, never considered any other university. And so we are a family, definitely, of transplanting for education, as all of you have mentioned, leaving and going to a place for education. And every single one of those university experiences shaped who we are. And I know for my daughter, York was a very important place for space and for being, especially because she's a literature student. My question is, we've talked a lot about what India offers a student from the University of York on the Mumbai campus. I mean, it's a glorious experience. But what is your best case scenario for what York brings to Mumbai? I know how special it is. I'm sitting next to a woman who also knows how special York is and wear transplants here. But what is it? We keep talking in those sort of large macro ideas of co-creation and knowledge, but what is it that York is really going to give to that experience?
Wow.
If I can say a quick something, I have, my experience of York is quite short. It's quite new, just from earlier this year. And I see very sharply the contrast between a place like York and a place like Mumbai, which is my home. And what I think York brings is this incredible sense of enterprise that, and to say that seems strange because Bombay is the financial capital of India, which is the 6th largest economy in the world. But York has this energy. It is a quiet place. And my daughter who visited on the weekend said, "Where are the people? Why is it so quiet?" You know, so, but still look at what York is doing in terms of bioeconomy. We have the creative industries. We have, you know, great things happening in computer sciences, safe autonomy, etc. They are not small. They are, you know, USPs to York, but they are also significant globally. Our work on sustainability across, you know, the sciences, across how we embed sustainability in our business programs. These are all incredibly unique to York, and these are hugely valued. So when anybody in India thinks of a business program, you know, business is about making money and scaling, and nobody thinks, well, there are bits that think about impact and sustainability, and that's a department, or that's a function, or that's something we have to tick a box on. But York thinks about it extremely differently. I've had to look at the curriculum, the module, what that means for the reading lists, and all of that, and how we deliver that into a student experience outside of the academic experience. And that looks like a very different business degree, and I'm sure that story will repeat across all the programs. So I think what York brings is unique, it's different, it's about those of us who are involved in all of this continuum across York and Mumbai, to being able to not only articulate that as we are here, but to actually live and deliver that to the students, not only who come to us in Mumbai, but who will experience Mumbai campus, perhaps from here and other parts of the world.
So I think in practical terms for me, and I guess this is because my job I spend a lot of time thinking about the positioning of universities in a context of quite instrumental thinking about higher education, is the interplay between our research and our teaching, and the way that plays out in being an active contributor to the local environment we find ourselves in. So I would like to think that people thought the University of York had brought something through its research and through its teaching that delivers something extra for the people who are encountering and engaging with us. I talk a lot about the utility of higher education, and I don't mean that in an instrumental. I mean it in the sense of getting people to understand just how vitally important education is in order to make the lives of people around us better. And I go back to, you know, parents want their children's lives to be better than their lives, and I think I would hope that we would have a role to play in enabling access to many more students in India than can currently avail of higher education capacity. That is, after all, what the new education policy is asking for. But to do that in a reciprocal and collaborative way, I think, is the trick. And we have a very strong ethos of collaboration. And we are, at this moment in time, one of only 4 UK universities that have a top ranking both for its teaching and its research. And I think that's really critically important. And the other 3 are some crowd called Oxford, Cambridge and Imperial. But we won't worry about them because, you know, we have that community idea, and we also have a festival of ideas.
So thank you, everyone. I'd like to draw this to a close.
We need to invite everyone for a drink. Celebration.
Yes, and I think Professor Avtar Singh has...
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you so much. If I can just invite the most important person in the university up to the platform, and that's Elke, to join me. This is just a vote of thanks, but also it's been an absolutely stimulating discussion. And I'm going to introduce a bit of culture as well. So, first of all, namaste, namaskar, sat sri akal, assalamu alaikum, vanakkam, and Jiayanu. And those two letters, G, J-I, are really, really important in culture. So, Amrita ji, Vishakha ji, Joan ji, Sanam ji, Asad ji, and Supriya ji. Sarenu Jiayanu. And that's really important in understanding culture. We spoke about people, place, culture, arts. And one thing that's really, really important is no matter where you are in the world, and that's food. Okay. So food is really important. So my first gift to Amrita ji and Consul General, Vishakha, and mangoes. These have some considerable air miles. They've come all the way from India to York, and they're probably going to go back to India.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is precious because I'm so fond of mangoes. And
they are ready to eat today.
It's not a food
But
in
are
India.
they an Alfonso? That's the question.
That's the question. Whatever it is.
There's 3 mangoes.
Mangoes are not a food in India, they are an emotion. And I recently organized an Indian Mango Festival in Cheshire, which I'm bringing to other cities of the north. And the idea is to bring Indian mangoes to the north of England so that you can have the democratization of taste, not knowledge. So thank you so much.
So we look forward to that. Elke, sorry, I just need you once again. So I suppose our greatest export to Mumbai won't be fish and chips, but it'll be chicken tikka masala. So when we go to Mumbai, we look forward to that as an export. Orange economy, thank you so much. It's the first time I've heard of that phrase. Joan, first time I've ever heard you mention chemistry. Thank you so much. And I have really, really important in terms of this sense of belonging and place is so, so important. I don't want to see a festival of ideas in Mumbai. I want to see a Mela of ideas. And the Mela is a festival, for those of you who don't know. So there's a nice piece of work that we can go forward with. On that note, thank you so much. And one final gift to take away. We have a very, very vibrant Indian community in York. And that's the York Indian Cultural Association. And this is the logo. And the logo combines the Yorkshire rose with the Indian chakra, which is the wheel in the middle. Okay? And the 3 colours are also the colours of the Indian flag. So we have a vibrant community. Some of the members are in the audience. And we'd like to present this again to Amrita as our queso. As you are walking across the campus, and health and safety is really important. And also for the Consul General, Manchester's a very, very safe place, but also it's always good to have a high-vis vest.
Good to be.
Those are the outtakes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
You're all invited.
You're all invited for a drink.
Celebration drink.
Thank you.